Hey everybody, Seth Campbell here with the new Segue Says podcast. Well, this week we're going to combine two big hits, one very new and one very old. And this was a favorite when I was playing out at the piano bars. The new hit, the first song, is Happy by Pharrell Williams, the inescapable number one of this past year. I believe it was number one at any rate. And the old hit is from way back in 1957, which is not quite the oldest song we've had in these podcasts, but it's certainly up there. And it's a song called Tequila by a band called The Champs. Now, odds are anyone viewing this knows one of these songs and not the other. Although, of course, everyone probably knows Happy. But you're probably much more familiar with one than the other. And I'm going to try to bridge the gap between the two here. So the first song, Happy, as I said, kind of inescapable. It was a big sort of almost a comeback hit for Pharrell Williams, because some people don't know he'd been around for a while, but this was his biggest success by far. And as a consequence, it got a little overplayed on the radio and used in a few too many commercials and TV shows to the point where people really couldn't stand it anymore, which is a shame because it's a really good song. It's very well crafted, and it's a very nice piece. But I feel like, and this is not Pharrell's fault at all, I feel like the music industry at large kind of oversaturated people with it. But of course, when I was playing at the piano bar over the course of last year and into the beginning of this year, I had to learn this because it was on the charts. Everybody wanted to hear it. Everybody knew this is one of the few modern requests that came up very frequently. And in case you don't know it, what am I saying? There's no way you don't know it. But this is a verse-chorus because we want to demonstrate the principles at play here. Now, it's in F Mixolydian. I'm using this nice EP sound because there's a lot of great EP in the original song. Now, I should make one caveat. Because I'm a solo artist, I had to change the chorus just slightly, adding a couple extra bars because there are two different lyrical lines, both of which are very integral to the song, and I wanted to keep both of them. And this is something that I find I run into with a fair amount of songs because I don't have backing singers. I have to sometimes extend choruses or split them because a lot of times both vocal parts are very important. So this is a verse chorus. It might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine, she's here, you can take a break. My heart is a balloon, I could go to space. On the air like I don't care, baby, by the way. Because I'm happy. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Clap along if you feel what happiness is to you. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. So as you can hear, it's got this classic sort of surfer groove. It's a very upbeat song, obviously. I mean, it's called Happy. Funny story about this song. Those who know me know I'm a bit of a curmudgeon. I mean, my own writing, I think I have yet to write a song that could even remotely be considered upbeat, at least in lyrical content. And when this song was first pointed out to me as this great feel-good, upbeat song, the first thing I believe I said, and I told this to my piano professor, Bruce Thomas, he was explaining the lyrics, he said, it's based on this metaphor of a room without a roof, the idea being no limits, no ceiling, nothing to keep you boxed in. I believe my first words were, so what happens when it rains? I mean, if you have no roof, the rain is just going to come in, but if you do have the walls, the rain's going to build up, and then this is my mental approach to things. I'm not exactly a happy-go-lucky person. But that said, even if it is ridiculously, positive, it's still a really good song. It's really well crafted. And I like it a lot, or at least I did. I have to confess that the oversaturation has gotten to me. And I feel bad about that because it's a really good song. But I need it spaced out a little more. And I don't think until this podcast I haven't actually played it since my last piano bar gig. Now, moving on to Tequila, is, as I said, the number one hit in both, I think, the pop and R&B charts in 1957. It was by a group called the Champs, who were hired by a record label. It was actually Gene Autry's record label. They were hired to write a B-side for a single by an artist who went by the name Dave Dupree. It was a song called Train to Nowhere, I believe. And the idea is that it would just be a throwaway track. You know, something mostly instrumental, maybe a word here or there, just a groove, so we have something to put on the B-side of the record. And of course, the B-side has become timeless and iconic and is still used all over the place and referenced. And that Train to Nowhere song, can't say I've ever heard it myself, but, you know, I want to quote one of my professors here. And don't take this, anyone who's watching, don't take this the wrong way. One of my professors, when talking about moments like this is for you, Sean Slade, said, "This just goes to prove," and by the end of the semester you'd have the whole class say this along with them, "The record companies don't know," word I won't use. But it just goes to show you that you never know what's going to be the hit, because this throwaway B-side has just become almost legendary, really. And it's a real simple groove, mostly instrumental, F Mixolydian, surfer groove, and the only lyrics are at the end of the instrumental phrase. This is done by saxophone, obviously. Tequila. And obviously it repeats and the saxophone improvises, and it's a classic song. You've probably heard it in the background to any number of things, because it's still referenced in pop culture all over the place. Now, the reason this segue came about is, as I mentioned, the Oversaturation started to get to me, especially because this was a very frequently requested song at the piano bar. It's one of very few songs. I tried to change up my set list every time, because I figured not only for the people working there, but for any regulars, that I wanted to keep new songs going so that people weren't hearing the same thing. But this is one of the few songs that was a constant almost every show after I learned it, because it was just so popular. And I confess that it was starting to wear on me a little bit, so I said, okay, you know, I'm going to keep playing the song. It's a good song. I don't mind playing it. But what can I do to keep it fresh? How can I mix this up a little bit to keep myself entertained and to keep people, you know, who've come to the bar and don't necessarily want to hear that same song that was on the radio 3 times on their drive over here, you know, they don't necessarily, they're not that thrilled to hear it. What can I do to spice things up a bit? And basically, I had taken to improvising quite a bit during the bridge section of Happy, which is the "Can nothing bring me down, there's nothing bring me down, your love is too hard to bring me down, can nothing bring me down." And in the original version, there's a female backing vocalist singing "Happy, happy, 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 happy." Well, 1 or 2 performances after I learned the song, I realized that, you know, me covering that part was not exactly an option. So I'd taken to doing some piano soloing there. And it sounded really cool, because this groove of this song it's very straightforward, it's easy to work with, and it's very engaging, as some grooves just tend to be. It has a good feel to it. So I was thinking, okay, you know, I've got this groove, I don't want to lose the groove, I want to keep improvising. Maybe I could do something like what I did with Brave by Sarah Bareilles, which you might have seen that podcast. I don't even know when that was. It was quite a long time ago, as a matter of fact, but where I'd added an instrumental song as an intro. So I figured, okay, you know, that puts a new flavor on it, brings another song, and I was thinking, okay, I've got this long improvisational section. what can I do? And I knew I wanted to do something there, either with lyrics or without, but I wanted to put another song in there. And I think at some point I basically accidentally improvised something similar to the saxophone solo. And if you've heard Tequila as much as I have, let me put it this way. I've known this song since I was in 6th grade. It was part of a mix. I went to a Montessori school, so occasionally during the less important work days, we'd have music on in the background. And this was in a mix that a dear friend of mine and former teacher at the time, Bruce Menon, brought in. And so much great music from that compilation alone that I've listened to and loved over the years. So thanks, Bruce, for that. Much appreciated. This song, of course, stuck out. When you've heard it as much as I have, you know how the solo goes. And I was doing something like which is a line from the solo, and I was doing that overhead. I said, wait a minute, I know this. That was an improvisation. I know that from somewhere. And I confess it took me a day or two to realize what it was. It was like, okay, that's solo from Tequila. So if I take Tequila and just slow it down a little bit so that it fits in the middle of Happy, would it work? Well, here's what the segue sounds like. You tell me if it works. Love is too hot to bring me down. Can't nothing bring me down, no. There's improvisation here, obviously. Then you just start the guitar groove from Tequila anytime you want. Tequila. Tequila. Because I'm happy. Yes, I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Told you it worked. And this is one of the easiest types of segues to pull off because it's almost just a tease. Because when you have a song that's mostly instrumental, it's easy to just play the melody over the groove of the song that you're already playing. And of course there are a couple new chords. And that depends if you want to go fully into Tequila like I did, then you'd use those. But there are a number of songs where you can just cameo a melody. And I believe I demonstrated this when I was playing the segue involving Golden Years a few weeks ago, where I just played the theme from Night Court. There's so many great examples of artists who do this. Bruce Hornsby in his song King of the Hill sometimes does I Feel Free by Cream. You know, the Grateful Dad did this all the time. Bruce Hornsby, The Brew, all of the great Segue artists have done this. And as I mentioned in the Yellow into Salisbury Hill video, Peter Gabriel did this with an orchestra, for God's sake, in the middle of Salisbury Hill. He had the orchestra playing Beethoven's Fifth over a 7/8 groove, which is really difficult to do, which is why I didn't try to play the groove there. Or 7/4 groove, excuse me. That was a mistake in the earlier video that I can't believe I made. I said it could be either 7/4 or 7/8. It's 7/4. But that's a little bit of house cleaning from long ago. But as you can see, this is something that's really easy to do. And we'll see more of these in the future, I'm sure. A lot of them involving theme songs or soundtrack pieces. Because they just work really easily. They're simple. And they're a lot of fun. And of course, anyone who knows the instrumental song, it's just a little tease, but it's enough for them to go, oh, I get it, I get you. And that's what happened a lot at the piano bar with that one is, the younger crowd really got into it for Happy because, it was on the charts, they knew it, they loved it. And then when I would when I'd switch to the riff of Tequila, suddenly the older crowd, all the older folks over there would look up. I know this, that. I wouldn't have expected this young, long-haired rock and roll hoodlum kid would know this song. But, and that's the joy, once again, and I do this a lot, is blending the new with the old, is you appeal to both crowds, and you introduce people to some music that they might not have heard or otherwise chosen to listen to. So hopefully you've enjoyed watching this. As always, thank you so much. I will see you next week.